Okay, longtime tour guide, but new at running a meeting on Google. So
we all are.
Forgive any technical difficulties. My best skills are in tour guiding, not in tech. Okay, so you're seeing my screen okay here?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay. So like I said, I won't go through my tour day by day. I just want to show you some of the highlights. But first, just a few things that that my group commented on in their evaluations that they really loved. First of all, just like other guided by tours, it was a small group. I had 16 friends. So this is almost the whole group on the Rialto Bridge in Venice. And as a lot of you know from already having been on tours with my guided by colleagues, it's so nice to have this smaller group where you really get a chance to get to know everyone. These were folks from all different parts of my life who didn't necessarily know each other, but by the end, with only 16 people, they had become friends. So with a small group, you're more agile. We can change plans. We can go with the flow. You have time to get to know each other over meals and make new friends. We fit in a nice, comfortable minibus so we could take those scenic back roads and fit into some tight Italian parking spots. And we all comfortably fit in this private boat that I hired when we were in Venice to take us out to a couple of the islands in the lagoon. Everyone was having a great day there. Another thing that everyone really enjoyed on my tour, as on other guided by tours, is that, and this is the reason why I'm calling my tours Friends in Italy or Friends in France, is because I just am so thrilled to take American friends to meet my European friends who are fabulous local guides. So I love hiring these folks who I've been friends with and worked with for years who are specialists in their area. And so it's so fun for my tour members to get this specialized knowledge and the perspective of these locals at each stop. Here's my friend Paolo, who led us on a food and culture walking tour in Rome. And I always feel like I'm the queen knighting them. We use these little radios so everyone can hear well, and I knight the local guide with the transceiver as I put it over their head. So they always laugh at that. Here's another fabulous local guide I work with. She's my dear friend Francesca, who's just one of the best guides ever, who's in Rome. And you may know her from Rick Steves' PBS shows. She's been in many of his shows in Rome. And we were just enjoying the fact that I had never before had my name on a bus. And then here's my friend Elena, who's facing my group there with her back to the magnificent cathedral in Orvieto, where we stop for a day trip, explaining to us the history and the art of the cathedral before she takes us inside. And then here's my friend Anna, who's an American who has lived in Siena for many, many years. She's an art history professor, and she is so passionate about her adopted hometown. So here she's telling my group, when we made a nice long stop in Siena on our way to our next destination, and she's telling us all about the Campo, the beautiful piazza, and its famous Palio horse race that tears around the square. Here she is showing us the inside of the cathedral and really bringing the beautiful inlaid floors to life. But another nice thing that people loved on my tour, as on other guided by tours, is that we try to balance the amount of group time with free time. So here are 4 of my happy tour members on the balcony of St. Mark's in Venice, overlooking the piazza. They had a free afternoon, so they wanted to go explore that. But I am always around to give you tips and my favorites for sightseeing on your free time and shopping in restaurants. And in fact, I was right there to help them. Can you see me? This was their picture. They spotted me down in the piazza. I also have great hotels like my colleagues. This was probably everyone's favorite. It was in Bologna, right off the main square, with really friendly, helpful front desk, beautiful rooms, and a fabulous breakfast. this is one of my favorite things when traveling is good hotel breakfast. See, at this one, they even brought us some of our food on these little trays as if we're having afternoon tea. But the best part of these tours and the best part of my Friends In tours is that I get to completely design it myself. So I have designed these tours with my very favorite places and using my very favorite hotels and restaurants and local guides. Here I am in Rome, introducing the Campo dei Fiori square with a market during the day and lots of restaurants in the evening. So I just love that I can introduce you all to my favorite places. And speaking of my favorite places, let me show you a few that were highlights in this tour. So first of all, our time in southern Tuscany, driving through the countryside, we saw this cute little flock of sheep, and we stay in a small place where we're surrounded by beautiful countryside, and we had a terrific, amazing day trip with a local guide. His name is Lorenzo. He is both a trekking guide, he leads hikes, and he's also a sommelier. So he made sure that we appreciated the local wine. And where he starts us out is in these amazing vie cave, these excavated roads. They were excavated by the Etruscans. So this is like 800 BC. And they're not exactly sure what purpose they served. Were they just for transportation? Were they for religious ceremonies? But these excavated roads lacing through the hillsides in this area of southern Tuscany, you can still walk on them, and you wouldn't necessarily know where to find them, though, unless you were with a local guide like Lorenzo, who knows not only the Vie Cave, the history and where they are, but he also knows all about the botany and the geology, and he was just a wealth of information. So here are my folks hiking on the Vie Cave, and as you can see, they're all wearing sneakers. It was uneven. There's a section that even has stairs carved into it. And my tour member who was using a hiking stick, but she did fine, and everyone in their sneakers did just fine. So it just feels like this cool, untouristed discovery when you're hiking through these excavated Vie Cave. And then Lorenzo knows every inch of them. So he showed us this Etruscan tomb that's just off to the side of the Vie Cave. Then we're going to go on to the beautiful little hill town of Pitigliano. This is where Lorenzo actually lives. And with my last group, they were such good sports. This day trip got really long and we didn't have time to explore Pitigliano very much. But in April, in my second round, Lorenzo's going to give us a good tour of the town, which is really charming with the little winding streets. You can see just to the left of my head here, that Medici aqueduct, which feeds this fountain in the town. So Lorenzo will take us through the streets of Pitigliano, including the Jewish area. This town is called the Little Jerusalem. It had and they protected their Jews in the 1500s like other cities did not. After we explore Pitigliano with Lorenzo, we're going to go very nearby to this adorable one-street town of Sovana, and this will be our lunch stop. It didn't feel like there were any other tourists there. It was very quiet. And we walked through the town, admiring the architecture and having fun exploring and spotting cats. This was kind of a cat crazy group. Do you see that interesting little house plant there? And Lorenzo was trying to tell us some history, but at this moment when we discovered 3, the whole tour kind of stopped and all the cat lovers had to go take pictures of the cats. And we continued through town to this church from the 1200s, which it felt like our own discovery. No one was in it. And there's Lorenzo up on the stair and explaining the carvings around the door. And we went inside and it was just so serene and just felt undiscovered. Then we'd earned a good lunch with our hiking through the Vie Cave. And so we went to a wine store that doubles as a restaurant, where Lorenzo's friends with the owners. See there, he's pouring us some of the local wine, making sure we try it all. And a nice thing about these small groups is sometimes instead of doing a set menu, I just let everyone order whatever they want a la carte. That's something you can't do with a bigger group, but it was fun to do here. It was kind of a drizzly, chilly day, and we'd worked hard that morning. So this was my lunch. This is what I chose, is some eggplant parmigiana and these local white beans cooked with olive oil and red onion, and of course the local wine. And it was so good. And this is, of course, one of the best parts about traveling in Italy is the food. Italy is the birthplace of the slow food movement, where the focus is on seasonal food, fresh, local, and Italian food, just simply prepared. The flavors just shine through, and it's just magnificent. And we do so much walking, you really are going to burn it off, so you can go crazy. Now look at this, you guys. This is our next stop. This is like something out of a dream. And I have to thank my Guided By and Rick Steves colleague, David, for introducing me to this place. This is a natural hot spring in Saturnia. It's free, it's open to the public, and it's been used as a place to soak and bathe since at least the Romans. So it has obviously a long tradition, but it's just magical. So we came here. There are very few tourists. It felt like we were in there with locals, and we threw on our swimsuits and our flip-flops or water shoes because you need something to climb over these terraces. And we soaked in this fabulous bathtub warm water full of minerals, so your skin is all silky, you're so relaxed. And what you can't see in this picture, well, there's a beautiful waterfall behind us, but in what we're facing is these lovely Tuscan hills. So you're sitting there totally relaxed, just having this wonderful natural spa experience. So the only real change I'm making in my tour for April is that instead of staying out in the countryside, we are going to be staying in this beautiful tiny town of Serrano. I decided to try this because our countryside hotel was lovely, but it really added a lot of driving time to that day trip. And my local guide, Lorenzo, was saying, you got to cut something out. And I said, I just can't cut any of those things out. So let's stay closer. So there are actually Vie Cave, those excavated roads that lead right from this town. And what we're looking at here in the town is a 12th century fortress, which is going to be our hotel. They've built a modern hotel inside. This is the entrance. Don't worry, you won't be sleeping on a pile of hay or anything. They have beautiful, unique rooms wedged into the different angles of the fortress, and they look out over the town and the countryside. So I'm really excited to take my next group there, and you'll even have a free day to just relax and explore this town too. See, they fit these modern rooms into the fortress with these ancient beams still intact. Now, this was at our countryside hotel, but we'll do this at our fortress hotel too, a cooking class when we're in southern Tuscany. It's so fun to learn how to make the pasta and the other foods that we're going to be enjoying. And of course, you have to take a break between your cooking tasks and have a little spritz as an appetizer. Now, that was southern Tuscany, just a fantastic day that everyone loved. And the next highlight I would love to share with you is Bologna. And this came up as a favorite for most, if not all, of my tour members because it's a fabulous city, but so few Americans go there. So Bologna is famous for its food. And this is just one of dozens of delis there. And when you think about Italy, the whole country being famous for its food, that's really saying something, that Bologna is considered the gastronomic capital. So here I'm trying one of the specialties, which is mortadella. That's the original bologna, which is nothing like the Oscar Mayer stuff you may have grown up with. It is so good. It's sliced paper thin and on some fresh bread. It's just fabulous. The produce stalls are so fun to look at. It's just like a display of jewels. I had to check out all the Parmesan. And my group just feasted like kings and queens there. It was so fun to go to a local restaurant very close to our hotel, be sitting amongst families and business people, celebrating and having a great meal, and to try course after course of delicious bolognese food paired with the great local wine. But, with the free time on this tour, you also have some free meals. So what a great city to stroll and explore and find your own little sidewalk cafe or cozy restaurant to have your meals and your free time. Here's one that I had last spring with some fresh mushrooms. Another thing Bologna is famous for is these miles and miles of porticos, these covered walkways in the fronts of all the buildings. So one day I went outside here, and you see how they become great gathering places, and they're beautifully lit at night. I went outside one day when it was raining and realized I don't need an umbrella. No one is carrying umbrellas. You can walk pretty much completely covered around town. And that makes it a great city for strolling. And it's so lively because partly because it has Europe's oldest university still very active. So the place is just hopping with thousands of students. Here are a few of my tour members enjoying an aperitivo at a little bar under the portico. And I had to join them with my Hugo Spritz, which is my favorite type of spritz. And Bologna has 2 leaning towers. You don't need to go to Pisa. They're right here. In fact, from this angle, that tall one looks straighter than it really is. They're working on propping them up, but wow, this shorter one is really tipping when you're at the right side of it. And the city's just so walkable. This is on a Saturday when they close all the main streets off to cars and people are just out strolling. I mentioned the university. We have a local guide who takes us on a walking tour with lots of stops for food sampling. And this is one of our stops in the university, is an operating theater. This is like you read about from the early days of medicine when they'd be doing an operation on that table in the middle and the students sitting in the banks of chairs up around them. Just fascinating. We also stop in the gigantic church of San Petronio, one of the symbols of the city. Here's all my tour members straining to figure out the date because it has the world's longest sundial, this bronze line you can kind of see embedded in the floor. There's just a pinhole in the ceiling which shines light onto this sundial, showing you the date and the zodiac sign. Just fascinating. And our local guide takes us in some of the chapels with incredible frescoes. I won't show you the horrifying depiction of hell they were looking at here, but I just love seeing those mesmerized faces of my tour members really soaking it in. And I mean, just the woodwork alone in the church is incredible. And again, it's such a lively town. It's so fun to explore on your own. It's so active, lit, safe, so many places to stop for a drink or a dinner. There's great shopping and always the students out keeping it lively. Here's the main square, Piazza Maggiore at night. This was 9 or 10 at night, people still out. I love the shadow of the statue there on the building. And here's one of my couples on my tour heading back to the hotel after a wonderful long day across the Piazza Maggiore. And Bologna even has canals. They're kind of tucked away and you need to know where to look for them. But they're so charming, just great photo ops. And that brings me to the last highlight I would like to show you, which is Venice. See how I did that? Similar to the last picture, but Venice, of course, is famous for its canals. Everyone knows the stereotypical aspects of Venice, the gondolas here, the canals, the beautiful colors of the buildings in Burano, one of the other islands, which we do visit together, and the Bridge of Sighs leading from the Doge's palace over to the prison. But I wanted to give people more of a backdoor view and go the untouristy angle. So I hired my friend Elena here on the right. who's a Venetian tour guide who is just fabulous. She's so knowledgeable, and she has this great sarcastic sense of humor. So you can tell she's cracking me up there. And she introduced us to some of the Venetian history. Here she is explaining gondolas, telling everyone how those two gondolas are going to manage not to collide. But then she took us really down some narrow streets that most tourists wouldn't know how to find their way down here. She took us on a little cicchetti tour. So cicchetti are these Venetian appetizers, kind of like tapas, that the Venetians like to have for an afternoon snack or an appetizer. So she took us to some cicchetti bars that we probably wouldn't have found on our own. And we tried all sorts of delicious little nibbles with Prosecco, the local bubbly, or a glass of wine. You can get all sorts of yummy things on a toothpick or on a sandwich. And we hung out like Venetians. Here we are in a little campo surrounded by locals, just propping up all our delicious cicchetti on the top of an old well. And just hidden behind my friend Gretchen's head is several pitchers of wine that we were sharing. So it was so fun to get this angle. But what my tour members really thought was unique and special was my friend Erla here, who is an American who's been married to a Venetian for 25 plus years. She's a writer, and she specializes in craftsmen who are still practicing the old historic crafts of Venice. So she took us on a tour of artisans' workshops. We went down some little untouristed, beautiful streets where life is still happening in Venice. See, the florist is still in business. We're in areas that aren't so touristy. And the first place she took us was Paolo's workshop. And this is a nice thing about being such a small group. We managed to all squeeze in amidst all the wood shavings and stuff that he's working on. And Paolo makes these custom oarlocks for the gondolas in Venice and other boats. And he showed us how he carves these out of a single block of wood. Here he's sanding one down. And even makes these intricate ones for other types of boats. They really are like works of art. It was so fascinating to go in his workshop. Then our next stop was Daniela's little studio. Daniela is the woman in the green sweater on the right. She is a shoemaker. She makes shoes by hand. And you can see behind us, we're in her little store. She doesn't usually host tour groups, but because she's friends with my friend Erla, she welcomed us in. She makes these artistic, incredible custom-made shoes. She was so proud to show off her work. And you can see those custom lasts that she makes according to each customer's precise measurements. And she showed us how she stretches these exotic leathers over the last and nails them and forms them into a shoe. And she showed us some shoes, antique shoes from her collection. And then our last stop was the last gold beater of Venice, who is not my tall tour member there. It's the guy who's kind of seated in the back, Marino. He is the last remaining craftsman in Venice to beat gold into gold leaf, these sheets of gold that are literally thinner than a hair. So these are the things that artists or artisans would use to gild a picture frame or a piece of art, or even his gold has been used to gild the cupola on top of churches. Here's his wife, who is cutting these sheets that he has pounded thousands of times into gold leaf. She's cutting them into these precise little squares for them to be ready to sell. What about that trash pile, which is flakes of gold there in the corner? So she showed us how she works with those. And this was fascinating. And it's a dying craft. It's been done, it's being done by machine now. So he's the last remaining person doing it by hand. And we ended our tour with this fabulous group meal in at one of my favorite restaurants where we sat on the terrace covered by grapevines and enjoyed this beautiful meal together. And with this small group where we'd become friends, you can see that a bunch of us women decided to hop on the current trend in Italy of leopard print. And so we all added to our wardrobe and we're on theme for our last dinner. So that's my friends in Italy. And it was so much fun. And I have a couple possible seats open on my Friends in Italy #2 in the spring if you're interested in joining me. And now